This conference will now be recorded.
There we go. All right, roll call vote. We'll start with John Ketchum.
John Ketchum here.
Mary?
Mary Mavlovsky here.
Robert?
Bob Doan here.
Joe?
Joe McFarland here.
Kathy?
Kathy Green here.
Donna?
Donna Kalanick here.
And David Nixon. Okay. This is the public comment of the meeting. Is there anybody who want to make a statement, John? Hearing none, moving on. We're under new business at this point, and we're going to take.
Hey, sorry to interrupt. You want me to read the rules?
Yeah, Jan, go ahead.
All right. Can you hear me all right?
Yes.
Okay. Pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the Open Meeting Law, GL, Section C30A, Section 18, and the Governor's March 15, 2020 order imposing strict limitation on the number of people that may gather in one place, this meeting of the Town of Harwich Community Preservation Committee on Thursday, December 10, 2020 at 6 p.m. will be conducted via remote participation to the greatest extent possible. Specific information and the general guidelines for remote participation by members of the public and/or parties with a right and/or requirement to attend the meeting can be found on the Town of Harwich website at www.harwich-ma.gov. For this meeting, members of the public who wish to watch the meeting may do so in the following manner: on Channel 18 or by watching the simulcast at http://harwich18.dsnd.org/cablecast/public/live.pspx ? Channel ID = 1. No in-person attendance or members of the public will be permitted, but every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings in real time via technological means. In the event that we are unable to do so, despite best efforts, we will post on the Town of Harwich's website an audio or video recording, transcript, or other comprehensive record of proceedings as soon as possible after the meeting. The end.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, can we have a motion for approval of the minutes for December 3rd remote meeting 2020?
I move that we adopt the meeting minutes from the December 3rd, 2020 CPC meeting.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Is the motion and the second? All those in favor, roll call vote, please. I'll start with myself. Yes. Donna?
Yes.
Kathy?
Yes.
Mary?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
Robert?
Yes.
Joe?
Yes.
Okay, that concludes that. I'd like to make the following recommendation to all the attendees at tonight's meeting. If you're not speaking, please mute your microphones so there's not a lot of interference. Thank you very much. Okay, moving on. We're going to the Lower Cape Community Housing Institute. The amount of the request is $15,000 over 2 years, which is $7,500 per year. Do we have anybody to speak?
Yes, here, Ann Robinson.
You have the floor, Ann.
Thank you. Thank you for giving me the chance to talk to you tonight about our request to you. It probably looks to a number of you because this is the fourth year that we have come before your committee to ask for the funds for our Cape Housing Institute. I'm not going to belabor the description of it too much because I know many of you are familiar, but it is our annual institute in which we provide an introduction to the issues of affordable housing so that elected and appointed officials of the town and staff of the town have an opportunity to become educated about the things they need to know in order to make informed decisions regarding affordable housing projects in Harwich. This will be the fifth year that we've offered the Institute. It is a 6-week training with different topics each week. It is intended to be a basic level training, and then we give more advanced trainings quarterly, as well as holding quarterly peer groups so that town officials can meet with their counterparts in other towns and discuss the common issues. Our request is for $7,500 for each year. We're requesting 2 years at a time so that you won't have to have the pleasure of seeing me before you again next year. It'll be 2022 before I return. And I'm happy to entertain any questions that you might have about our request.
Okay, I'm going to open it up to the floor. We're going to start with Mary.
Thanks, David. Hi, Ann.
Hi, Mary.
Have you been able to have your programs this fall?
You know, we postponed it because a combination of COVID, and also, you may know Andrea Aldana from my office, and Andrea had been on family leave. She just had her first child.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah, so we're actually going to do it starting at the end of January. So it'll be 6 sessions that we're spreading out over 12 weeks because we had the request from people that it was just a little too intense doing it 6 weeks back to back. So we're actually going to be doing it every other week. So it should conclude in April. And
All
then
right.
next year's the 2020 in the fall.
Okay, so that was my question. You still anticipate having next year's in the fall?
Yeah, we'll go back to that schedule.
Okay. That's all for me, David.
Thank you, Mary. Joseph.
I don't have any questions on this one, thanks.
Robert.
I have no questions. Thank you.
Donna.
Hi, Ann.
Hi, Donna.
How you doing?
Yeah, how are you?
Good. I am a big proponent of this education. I attend almost every session that they have. And I will say that even though they weren't able to offer the educational series this fall, they have been holding a monthly Lower Cape monthly meeting with all of the towns attending. It's been very valuable. We've been working on emergency rental programs, which almost all the towns have now started. We also get an update on any economic opportunities out there for small businesses. My only observation would be that there has not been robust participation from the town of Harwich. Charlene, who is now almost retired, does attend regularly and occasionally our Bowdoin. So I'd like to see somehow to increase the participation of those engaged in housing from the town of Harwich, because the programs you offer are incredibly valuable, not only to learn educational pieces, but also to build collaborative efforts. So thank you, Ann.
Yeah, well, thank you for your support.
Thank you, Donna. Robert.
You already talked.
I already
have
got
no
you.
further.
Kathy?
My only question was, where do they publicize the availability of these particular courses, et cetera?
We do it in a variety of ways. Each town has a town captain, and Charlene's been your town captain, so we're going to have to get somebody else from Harwich. But we rely upon the town captains to know who it is they should be inviting to or letting know that these things occur. But we also have it in our monthly newsletter. In the past, we've actually posted it in public places like town hall and the libraries. Of course, we don't have the opportunity now to be able to do, physical postings, but we do try to get it out to a variety of online sources. So, and if you have any suggestions for any place that would attract attention of the people we're trying to attract, that would be great.
Yeah, I was just wondering if there was, in terms of participation, now that it's going into year 4, do you find that it's mostly participants that have already, gone through the training, or is there a certain percentage that's new, and how do we drum up the new?
Yeah, it's a mix. I would say that last year, for example, probably about 30% of the people were new, and the rest were people who had been before. Another thing we had done last year is Jay Coburn, our CEO, had gone to each one of the select boards of each of the 8 towns and did a brief presentation about it so that the select boards would be aware of it. And I think that helped. We got some of the new select board members from each of the towns. But yeah, it is, we are trying to direct it to people who are first-time attendees, especially.
Okay, thanks.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Kathy. John?
I have no questions at this point. Thank you.
And David, I have no questions at this point. Thank you very much for coming to the meeting.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Dave, can I just comment?
No? I'm telling the chairman of the Board of Selectmen he can't have a public comment. Larry, just to explain, in the very beginning of the meeting, I allow public comments, but because of past history, I do it in this format to give the board the time to have a discussion.
That's fine.
My apologies, sir.
That's good.
All righty. Ian, thank you very much for coming. Okay, next is the funding for the part-time housing coordinator, and that requested amount, this is CH7. The requested amount is $50,000. Mr. Chairman, the floor is yours. Go ahead, Don.
First, my apologies to Larry. I'm not here as a selectman. The request, I limited it to $50,000. It was a conscious decision. We had in prior years been building up a war chest for the possibility, which is pretty strong possibility, of buy down as we build. But in the meantime, we're taking a pause on that, but we still need staff support. And wherever that might come from, whether it's a contract or it's in-house, it's still going to be required to be funded. So that's the entire extent of the request. We have yet to actually develop an action plan, mainly because there have been problems with trying to get together a forum that would make any kind of sense to build a consensus around what we're trying to do. I don't know how you folks feel about this, but Zoom-type meetings are extremely cumbersome, and you normally only get the choir members of the church. You don't get the people outside that you really do want to have. So that's kind of stalled our activity. but moving forward, again, we still need staff. We're at the point now where we're starting to roll out some stuff. We're doing engineering at Sisson Road, which has nothing to do with this, but somebody's got to coordinate that inside town hall. And it's not well suited for me to be doing that myself as a chair. You have to unmute yourself, Dave.
Are you all set, Don?
I'm all set. You can ask away.
Okay, the first thing I'm gonna lead off with this, I've been watching the meetings of the trust, and I'm quite pleased that things seem to be moving on now. There was a point in time where I was really disappointed in the overall performance of what was happening. But now that I see things are being recognized and move forward, I guess that's going to go down to why you need the extra monies for the hours that are going to be done. So I'm going to move on. Joe.
Thank you. Dawn, I've been watching your committee and the movements and what you've been trying to attempt to do, but I'm a little bit unclear. Well, I'm very unclear as to what the roles and responsibilities are of this woman that works alongside you. I have seen her there. I see she reports out certain things, but what are her, just, you don't have to get into detail, but I'm just curious, what are your thoughts as to what her major taskings are going to be going forward in the next 12 months?
It's mostly functional, Joe. I need assistance in assembling the agendas, and if there's anybody outside that needs to be called, brought in, that would be that person's responsibility. Basically, she's performing liaison duty to MHP, Mass Housing Partnership, at the moment, also. So it's basically functional stuff to make sure that between the meetings that we have some presence. She does have office hours, except that that's kind of a moot point at the moment with COVID.
Yeah.
But I anticipate that those will be fired up again too.
The 50,000 you're asking for is just what you anticipate in terms of the workload, I assume, and the hours that you're going to assign. Yes. Again, I'm putting it in the next 12 months just because there should be a timeline of some kind for this job and what he or she is going to do. I did see some stuff which, because I'm on the housing committee, and I saw some things that she's going to be doing, possibly be doing in terms of community outreach and public, letting people know what you guys do. You know, not everybody reads or looks at, I know you got a beautiful face, Don, but not everybody looks at your little Zoom thing when you have your meeting. And so I think it's, you know, I hope it's part of her job responsibilities to let the community know what you're doing, because you have a lot of money to be able to spend in the near future and in the future on some really great things that I see you about to do.
I have, first of all, we also have a Facebook page, and she feeds content to that too. So yeah, I get what you're saying, and that's what we do rely on her for. But the bottom line is, just so that I'm not going to leave that unchallenged. Yeah, we do have a lot of money, but what we're trying to do on Sisson Road particularly is probably going to take all of it. We have plenty more people who want money from us than we've got money to give them. Right now, that project, because we were looking to try to make it 60% and 80% fully affordable, is going to probably require a significant buy down on the part of the town, in addition to us supplying the land.
Okay.
So that's unknown. We're at the point where we're getting engineering to be able to even put out the bid through MHP, you know, but we want to give more than bonus points for designs. We want to be able to kick money in to get where we want to go. And that's something, you know, that's one of the components on the policy end I'm dealing with. But again, you need somebody there in between the meetings. We have agenda building meetings like every week, you'll see where we're at, and there is outreach. So it's stuff that I couldn't possibly do because that isn't my job.
Okay. All right, I'm good. Thank you very much. Thanks, Dave.
All righty, Joe, thank you. Robert,
Yeah, to follow up on Joe's comments or talking about this duties of this person, did they perform all their duties or currently or past, with the COVID, they're not holding office hours? Is she billing less? Because it is a contract right now, is it not?
It is, although I'm sure Anna's going to appreciate hearing this, but we're not wedded to the concept of it being a contract forever. My ultimate goal would want to be to fold it in to staff in the planning department to have some ownership over it. But yeah, I mean, she's doing significant outreach. Interestingly, as the prior presentation brought up, I would love to see the ZBA get into these housing institutes because I'm not quite sure that they're fully focused on their 40B responsibilities. And that's a group that I know that's been underrepresented in the housing institutes, and that's probably the critical place for us to be able to move on. But yeah, she is doing stuff, and unfortunately, it's actually more unwieldy than it had been in the past. So her time is being consumed. A lot of it's with me. So I'm trying to keep as Joe was pointing out, I'm trying to keep the train running here. But what I am adamant about is I really don't want to get involved with outreach when I know I'm not reaching out to anybody, because then I'm just going to blow the money mindlessly.
Yeah. Does she get a performance review?
I mean, it's mostly I've been on my own until Joe was appointed the interim town administrator, but we certainly talk about her performance with each other, and then I give her feedback about what she's doing. And Andrea's back now too, so I touched base with her a couple of weeks ago, and so yeah, I mean, trust me, if I'm not happy with what's going on, they know about it.
Okay, thank you. That's it.
thank you, Bob. John,
Yeah, my questions have mostly been answered, but I guess if I remember correctly, when we had this conversation a year ago, you were requesting $30,000 for this, and we actually increased that amount. Is that correct? Do I remember that? And which didn't get approved by town meeting until what, 2 months ago or whatever. So that money is paying for the contract through this fiscal year? Is
June
that
30th.
correct?
June 30th. Yep.
And so this request will basically provide continuity. And Bob asked if if she was being utilized, but I guess my question is more direct. Is that contract being fully spent this year? Is that $50,000 allotment being fully spent next year? And you anticipate a need for that amount again next year?
There is a nexus. I wasn't just rambling on. There's a nexus between the project, Sisson Road, and this, because there's going to be a heck of a lot more stuff going on in between meetings that I need to be able to keep track of when we start getting engineering and contracts involved. I mean, and again, David and I had talked about this significantly. We're at that juncture now. My gold standard for the efficacy of what we're doing is, can I get somebody to cross a threshold with a ceiling over their head? And that's the point we're at now. Everything else has been trying to get together rules and how we operate and try to get to the point where the public is more engaged. And I appreciate the fact that David's noticed that there's been a change, because we've been trying really hard to do that, but that requires more staff time too.
Okay. Thank you, Don. Thank you, Dave.
all right, John, thank you. Mary,
Thanks, David. Hi, Dawn.
Hi, Mary. How you doing?
Good, thanks. My first question is, how long is CDP under contract? Are they only under contract through this fiscal year? Or is that contract extended?
We put out a request for this year. We've been paying on basis of continued services on purchase order basis because it wound up going in the same queue that was a fairly significant one for the town of backed up RFPs. The money amount is going to be the same. The mechanism about how we get there is probably too much in the weeds for you. But I mean, yeah, the second part of the year is going to be contract, and the first part of the year was just, and it probably is going to be covered under this contract, but it was done on a month-to-month basis because we couldn't be caught without staff with Charlene leaving.
Okay, so I just didn't know whether you had an existing 3-year contract with them or whether there wasn't a contract through this fiscal year. So
the only contract we
in the
had,
conversation being whether you're going to move it in-house or whether you would still keep it as a contract and an outsourced vendor. That was kind of where my question was coming from.
There's a lot going on right now with Charlene moving and with the selectmen having to consider what the upstairs would look like given that. So we're in part of that discussion. So this is the juncture that would have happened just organically because we're there now. But the contract itself was originally a year contract with an option to extend for 1 year. So it wasn't 3, but again, we're still operating with them and we're still expending the same amount of money. And the hours are actually greater because of the things that I'm doing right now. It's not as apparent with the meetings because frankly, I don't think that the meetings are as consequential as the actions. And that's why we really need somebody in between, from meeting to meeting. I spent a lot of time with Belinda, strategizing and doing stuff in between the meetings.
Sure. I just also want to echo what David said. It does seem like the trust is getting ramped up and, we understood that kind of, you've only been in existence it was a year last fall. So, the expectation is that more would be happening. I do wish you had applied for additional money because I would have, as you pointed out earlier, the Sisson Road project is going to take quite a lot of your funds anyway. But I look forward to a next application as well.
I appreciate what you're saying, Mary, but it was a bond of faith that I had with David. I said, I really need to be able to demonstrate we can walk and chew gum at the same time. That was not happening initially. And I want to demonstrate through our efforts that we can actually accomplish something before I start hitting you up for more money.
Understood. I'm all set, David.
Thank you, Mary. Donna.
Good evening, Dawn. How are you?
Good. How's it up the top of the street?
Well, did you see the fire truck come today? My grill caught on fire, so that was a little bit of excitement. I'm happy to report the Harwich Fire Department did a great job. Everybody's fine.
Joe and Larry are taking notes. I appreciate it.
Yeah, I mean, as you know, I am a huge housing proponent, involved in a housing trust myself for the town of Brewster, and I do have a couple of questions. So just to clarify, the contract that you had with CDP ended on June 30th, 2020. Is that correct?
June 30th.
Okay. And you're still trying to work out what it is exactly you're going to do, or you're intending on having them under contract at least through June 30th of 2021 and then make decisions about the long term of the position?
That's the plan. And if Ann's taking notes, you can tell Jay that there's a request out there and he has not gotten back to us.
Okay.
Can we hold off for 1 minute, please? John Cherry, would you please mute your microphone? Thank you. Okay, go ahead.
So I think it would be really helpful if the CPC were able to see some of the quarterly reports that the housing coordinator or the housing consultant submits. You know, for one, like I'm really interested in knowing how many residents are being served. To me, that's a very important component of this. And even in virtual office hours or in a pandemic, there are lots of ways that we can still connect with residents. And particularly given the situation right now, the fact that the eviction moratorium is no longer in place, it is more important now than ever to make sure that we are getting information out to residents about what types of programs are out there that can help them. So I would love to see some of the reports that they submit to the trust, and I would also like to see how many residents are being served. I just want to clarify on the change in who is submitting this application. We got to change that it's the town of Harwich, Joe Powers. And so does the housing coordinator, the housing consultant, do they work for the trust? Or are they going to work for the town of Harwich? And if this is the change, does that mean that they'll be more available to the other people who are doing housing within the town? Because I think it's really critical that there's crossover between committees. Like I would love to see the trust have a joint meeting with the Community Preservation Committee. So I guess I'll stop and let one of you answer that question.
The trust is the trust. It's filed with the Registry of Deeds. It's not the town. It's formed through the town. I mean, you got a generic email, and I'm not going to throw Joe under the bus. He's not responsible for this at the current time. It's me and the trust. But I'm not sure how many other questions that you want answered in that. In terms of robustness of interchanges, Art and I talk all the time, and we're about at the point where we need to do another housing plan. So, but then again, that's wrapped up with the fact that we don't currently have a town planner who would assisted in the last iteration of it. So there's going to be plenty of opportunity for cross-pollination, but we've been doing, again, my thoughts on this, and the trust are unanimous in this, is one of the ways we're engaging the community is we needed to pick a project that was doable, which we've done, and we need to make sure that the public is well aware of what's going on as it's happening, because in my mind, unless we're successful with something and show people what's capable of happening, this isn't going to get traction, especially in a COVID era. So actually advancing the ball is a big deal to me, so that there's something tangible to show for it.
Yeah, the housing production plan expires in 2021, so that will be something that has to be addressed. And, you know, just based on the conversation that happened on town meeting floor, it was pretty clear that some basic housing education needs to be done in the community. And I mean, I see that as being something that a housing coordinator would assist with. Again, if we could get information on how many residents are being served and copies of the reports that you receive, I think that would be really helpful. Thank you.
Okay, Donna, thank you. Kathy.
Yeah, I've got no questions. Thank you.
Welcome back, Kathy.
Okay, one follow-up question I have, Don.
Yep.
Again, this is coming from a dinosaur. As I do my daily work, I do a lot of phone calls. And is there a number that the coordinator can be reached that people can call in, make a phone call to set up an appointment or to set up some kind of a meeting?
Well, the CDP number, Belinda responds through. And I know people can leave messages at town hall. We weren't really prepared for the longevity of COVID because she was holding actual physical office hours. I suppose we could do that. But it would have to be through CDP, at least temporarily. Because town hall itself is on a skeleton staff. It's not something I'm going to dump onto the front office. And they're not my staff. I mean, that's the other issue. So, taking messages, there is, again, the Facebook page is very helpful because that's an interface that they can avail themselves at. And if you really want to contact her, you can message her through that or comment.
Don, I don't want you to be horrified by this comment. I don't do Facebook.
That's okay. When you were talking about dinosaurs, I was thinking to myself, that it's Jurassic Park at the top row here.
Thank you, Don.
Mr. Chair, may I address your question about contacting Belinda?
Go ahead, Ann.
I just wanted to say that, we're performing the same services for both Chatham and Wellfleet. And in Wellfleet, we, at the town's request, obtained a special number that people can call, and it goes directly to Belinda, having people need to call this. So it's something that we can arrange if the town would like us to. We've already done so.
Well, and if it's VoIP, you could create a number that would riff off of the same line.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Donna.
I just want to follow up on that. I mean, again, I know I said it, but we're in an emergency crisis, and people need to be able to talk to somebody about issues that they're having around housing. And if that's not the function of the housing coordinator or the housing consultant, it needs to be the function of someone, because it's very, very important. And I would encourage you, Don, and the trust, not to hold off forever on doing this community process, because we're going to be in this pandemic for a while, and people are getting really creative about how to do community outreach, community forums during this process. And I just think, part of the CPC's charge is to support under the housing umbrella. It's not just creation and acquisition, it's also support for housing. So we need to support our residents.
I get that, Donna, but you got the right church with the wrong pew. The housing committee that was set up expressly for the purpose of advice and consent and public outreach, and I know that they've been discussing what their role is, but that is their role. We don't have a cashier where we're giving people money directly. There's a CDBG grant that HAC is administering for rental assistance, but we're not in that game. And the housing committee would probably be the point organization within this town. Joe's jumping out of his chair.
All right, at this point, are there any other questions from the board? Joe?
I just want to say, ever since I got on this housing committee from some people in this room that helped me with that, I appreciate it and I hate it at the same time, because I have not really recognized the role. Don has been in front of our housing committee, and we brought this to his attention, and he acknowledged it and said, let's work together. And that, Donna, to your point, that's the primary role that I want this housing committee to do. The primary role on cable TV, on Zoom, on Facebook, any way we can get all of these answers out. Be the focus and front coordinator. I'm taking up all the time, David. I'm sorry, but I just want people to know that that we are working through this, and I for one, I don't want to speak for my chairman, but I've been pushing this very hard to say should be our role, and we should be doing this on a monthly basis. I've been talking to your people in Brewster with a woman there who does a wonderful job, and in Chatham. I made a lot of calls on as to what they do in housing, and I've learned a lot in the last month. So it's not the forum for this, but I just want to acknowledge that should be, and I'm going to make sure I will work towards making that our role with people's help.
That would be
Thank
helpful
you.
to us.
Mary?
Thank you, David. So I'm going to also say that I'm on the Housing Committee with Joe. I just need to point out, we are a committee without a staff. So this housing coordinator has not been staffing our housing committee. So, and we are strictly a advisory committee to the Board of Selectmen. So we do what the Board of Selectmen have directed us to do. And it feels like we've been, since I've been on the board in 2016, 2017, we have been looking to firm up a mission for our committee, and that really hasn't happened in the 4 years that I've been on the committee. So while Chairman is present, and while we're talking about it, I just want to get it out there. I think the Housing Committee is happy to do whatever the Housing Committee is asked to do, but we're also a committee without a staff, and the Housing Coordinator isn't, to my knowledge, to date, staffing our Housing Committee. So to take on that role, as Donna suggests, is a wonderful idea, but from a practical standpoint, I don't know how that's going to play out unless there are some changes made.
We're looking at all those changes. That's my point. Joe and Larry and I have been talking about this for months, about how to coordinate all of the activities, get some stuff back into town hall, and be able to give some real assets to both. I'm not saying anything different than when I appeared in front of the Housing Committee. You know, I feel strongly that A, you got to be revising the housing plan, and B, the outreach and advice and consent are the other roles. I mean, it's morphed. I wrote the charge for your committee when I was a selectman back in 2000. So where it is now is not where it is at that where it was at that time, because there was a lot of functional stuff going on there. But now there's a trust. So the trust is not really designed the way it's currently designed to get a deep dive into some of the areas that I just said. That really is the Housing Committee. Sharing staff is a potential thing ongoing. I mean, we could talk about that, but the point is, that's why we need to have the staff, because you're right. When you don't have it, like you don't, you're dead in the water.
Well, and Don, I understand that, and I'm just trying to clarify that for those listening as well, because it's not that the Housing Committee is doing nothing. It's that there's, frankly, since the trust kind of has been formed, there hasn't been much for us to do as of yet. So just calling that to everyone's attention.
I am glad that Larry's on, even though he wasn't allowed to talk, because now he's hearing this. I mean, this has been an ongoing discussion. You're not saying anything that I don't understand.
Thank you, Mary. Are there any other questions from the board? Hearing none. Dawn, thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me, guys.
Okay, moving on.
Can I leave, Mr. Nixon?
You can leave, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Good seeing you all. And if I don't see you before that, have a happy holidays.
You too, Don. Okay, under old business number 5, follow up on the Recreation Department submittal of applications with the Harwich Recreation, Eric Beebe. Eric, you have the floor.
Hi, everybody. Yeah, we had received all your questions that you sent over. Me, myself, Griffin Ryder, the town engineer, and Joe Powers, we all reviewed them and came up with answers that I believe were sent back over to you yesterday for your review. And we are open to any questions you might have on, further questions that you might have on those projects.
Okay, I'm going to start the discussion with John Ketchum. John, you have the floor.
Okay, well, I don't really have any further questions. I think that, the things I were focused on were the details of the engineering report. And I had some specific questions, and they were pretty much answered by the thing you sent out yesterday, which I did go through. So I'm pretty much happy with that. The only thing that isn't made specific, I guess, is that in some of your responses about specifically the energy cost of these new systems, the statement was made that there's going to be savings from maintenance costs, but that wasn't quantified. It was just a generic statement. So if you can say anything more about that, anything specific, like how much, what are the savings, what have the costs been, and what do you anticipate they will be, that would be helpful. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Well, the only thing I'll say, I don't know if Griffin or Joe want to say anything, but the only thing I'll say, as far as Brooks Park, we don't have any quantified amounts for what we'd be saving as far as the maintenance costs. For White House Field, we're spending upwards of $12,000 to $15,000 a year right now on replacing bulbs and ballasts, and that's been going on for several years now. So that's one number we do have. But I can get some more numbers for you if you'd like to see them.
John, go ahead.
Yeah, so do you have costs somewhere for annual maintenance for the proposed systems? Or is there a maintenance contract that has a fixed cost?
I can speak to that, Mr. Chair.
Go ahead, Griffin, you've got the floor.
So with the new systems, we're not anticipating much for maintenance costs, at least in the early stages of the life of the project. For the replacement at White House Field, there's a 10-year warranty for a retrofit. So anything goes wrong in those 10 years, whoever that company is, they can come down and fix that. So that's one of the things that we're looking to specify in the technical specifications for the project. And then for Brooks, that would be a new system, so that would carry a 25-year warranty. So that would be included in those technical specs. And for the existing maintenance costs, we weren't really privy to all that information. I know Eric has some of that information for White House Field, and I know Sean Libby has struggled with the other lighting system as well. And one other thing to note with the Brooks Park lighting system is the existing system just is really insufficient for what it's serving. So it's hard. I think one of the statements was it's hard to compare that to the new system because they are really serving different purposes.
Go ahead, John.
Okay, thank you. That's it for me, Dave.
Thanks, John. Donna.
Hi, Eric. Hi, Griffin. How are you?
Good. How you doing?
Good. Thank you for the answers to your questions. I just had a couple of follow-ups. I just want to be clear about the scoreboards. So twice you say that the scoreboard from the 2019 article isn't included, but then in the beginning it says White House lighting and scoreboard. So are there two scoreboards? Am I missing something?
I can take that. So the scoreboard was appropriated from a previous article.
Correct.
Knowing that we hadn't had an engineer look at what it would take to connect that scoreboard and whatnot, we asked this engineer to look at that as well. But the costs that are carried in the study are going to be paid for by that other article. So we aren't looking for more money for the scoreboard as part of this. That is covered under that other article. So there is only one scoreboard.
How much of that prior article was expended?
I think Eric can speak to that.
Yeah, no, the new money that we're asking for isn't money for the scoreboard. That's just for the lights. The additional 100,000 is not for the scoreboard. The article that we had in 2019 is going to cover our scoreboard.
Okay. So the money that you got in 2019, which I believe was $55,000,
It's still there.
That's paying for the scoreboard.
Yes.
But, okay.
Can I stop everybody for one moment? I want to make something extremely clear. There are two separate articles we're talking about here, and we're intermixing them, Brooks Park and White House Field. Presently, for the general public, we're talking about White House Field. Go ahead, Donna.
I'm sorry. Thank you, David. I guess where my confusion comes in is that the total cost of the quote includes replacing the scoreboard. So if the money for the scoreboard still exists, then
I know where you're going with it.
Okay.
That was included in the design study, so an RFP could be prepared for the scoreboard as well. The money for the scoreboard in the new study that you guys received was taken out of the numbers when we compiled what we needed to finish the lighting. So that was subtracted before we figured out what we needed.
Okay. All right. Thank you for clarifying that.
Sure.
I was the one who asked about the 22%. And I mean, I still think that number is high. I feel that some of these items that you're carrying should not be carried separately like that. I would actually do 100% payment and performance bond on this big of a project. But I never carry that as a separate line in estimate. So I want to be clear, because I asked about the 22%, and one of the things that you replied was that will help get you to construction docs for design. So that's about $27,000. So the $27,000 is what you think you will pay additionally to get the construction docs to go out bid. And then does that cover oversight of the project as well? And if not, who will be overseeing the project?
Fair for me. So for that, that did include construction oversight from the electrical engineer. You know, at that stage, it was, you know, it's a conceptual estimate, so 5% is typical. And I think we have received an estimate from the electrical engineer, and it did come in a little bit under that.
Okay, I think that it would be more helpful in the future that those costs are defined better, because I think all of us, it wasn't just me, looked at it and said, why is the contingency of 22% so high? All of these, adding on percentages and fees. I mean, it's like you're saying to the contractor, go ahead and bid high. I mean, I think it's too high, but maybe if it were defined better, then we could understand where this money is going to.
If I can answer that, the contingencies will be defined
Hold
better
on
after
for a
this.
moment. Joe, you have the floor.
Well, first, if I may, Mr. Chair, I'll defer to the engineer, but then I'd like to follow up after Griffin.
Okay,
Thank
go
you.
ahead, Griff.
So the contingencies will be defined further as we get closer to construction. This is really based on a conceptual design. Many times in engineering design, you carry a 30% contingency at conceptual design, and as you get to construction, that contingency gets whittled down to somewhere around 5%. With this type of project, there's not a whole lot of design stages that we need to go through, so you really you have the ability to go from conceptual design to construction, and that's what we intend to do. There's not a lot of steps along the way where we need to answer questions. So that contingency would basically go from 30, 20, 22, and it's not really 22 because of the way it's added in. But that as we get to construction, that's a 5% contingency, which is standard. So as this is bid out, it's not going to be bid out with the 22% contingency that a contractor could jump on. That's not how we anticipate going forward.
So I had suggested to Eric that it would be better to go to town meeting with a real number, but it sounds like you don't have the funding to complete the construction design in order to do that.
Go ahead,
The
Griff.
funding is available to complete the design, just not the construction.
Donna?
No, I was going to defer to Mr. Powers.
Go ahead, Joe.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee for having us tonight. And it may be somewhat past based on how the conversation just transpired. But I do want to assure Donna, as you've mentioned, and anyone on the committee, that we will absolutely be refining the way that we handle projects of any sort, regardless of where the funding comes from, but certainly mindful about how projects will come before CPC in the future. I don't know if the chairman wants me to speak later on to the memorandum that he requested that I supplied, but that's part of it. Another part of it is a sincere effort to make sure that we are getting to true and accurate costs so that when we go before bodies such as the Community Preservation Committee, the Finance Committee, or the Capital Outlay, and then ultimately town meeting, that we have the utmost faith and trust in the numbers. This is going to be a more relevant topic, I think, when you talk about the other lighting project. But that's why you see the chairman of the Board of Selectmen, the interim town administrator, and the town engineer supporting and joining the recreation director and the chair of the Recreation Commission. Because we're all of a mind that we need to do better in our presentations and our accuracy and how we procure. So we will do a better job of defining, and this is one of those projects that got caught in the crosshairs, if you will. But as we go through fiscal year 22 town meeting, I've already alerted department heads and any agency or committee chairs that we need to do a stronger job on our estimates. We need to be mindful of design studies and truer costs. So we still have some difficulties like we did in the process for fiscal year 21. We may have less difficulties in fiscal year 22, and I'm hoping beyond that we're in a much more streamlined, efficient, and professional manner than we are now. And that's what this effort tonight is meant to get to as well. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Joe. Donna?
Thank you for that. I will say that most of the quotes that have come before us, I've questioned whether or not prevailing wage was being used, because on a lot of them, they don't say prevailing wage. And if it doesn't say prevailing wage, you can't be 100% sure that the quote you have is in fact using prevailing wage. And it seems like that is part of what happened with this project. So I'm happy to hear that there's going to be more effort given to the detail and the accuracy. And, you know, I know a lot about this. I've been a procurement officer for 10 years, so I'm sorry if I get into the weeds about the questions, but you know, the fiduciary responsibility of the Community Preservation Committee is serious, and I take it seriously. It is resident taxpayer money. Thank you.
Joe, go ahead.
Thank you. Donna, if I may, you say you got into the weeds. Any of us that do procurement, we know it's all about the weeds because the weeds are the details. And to borrow a phrase, the devil is in the details. So I know we're on the same page and have the same mindset. And the point on fiduciary responsibility is not lost on me. And that's a conversation that I've had with department heads and committee chairs because we all have that responsibility every first Monday in May for sure. So thank you for that.
Donna, you all set? Kathy?
I could just say that the particulars of the engineering report were way above my pay grade. So I have no questions at this time.
Thank you, Kathy, and you're not alone. All right, moving on. Mary?
Nothing for me, David.
Robert?
Yes, thank you, Eric, for coordinating all these responses. I'm still would like to see, I think, a recap or redo of the overall costs and how you came up with what you're asking for. For instance, I get that you subtracted out the scoreboard, but you really only subtracted the scoreboard itself. There are a lot of line items that include the concrete base and disposal and all that, and they really should be added in as your back out number. In fact, what I came up with, without any contingencies or escalations, the scoreboard is $54,422 on this proposal. And I'm pretty sure, but there are items that doesn't say whether it's attributed to the scoreboard or the lights, which means that the $55,000 that you originally had is not going to cover the scoreboard alone. So I think two solutions possibly. One, it should be the scoreboard should be totally pulled out entirely of the quote and almost a separate ask more money on that, or possibly reword this article as both including Brooks Park lighting and scoreboard, taking your total numbers you already have, but then when you back out what's already been voted on for the lighting and the scoreboard, then recalculate your numbers. And I think you're going to find out you don't need $100,000. You'll need, but I think you should go through that exercise of recalculating what you really need.
Eric?
Yeah, I'm going to defer to Griffin and Joe on this one. I'm not sure the final engineering report. I'm not really qualified to read all that myself.
I did run through a calculation with Eric to get to the ask that we came to. So I'd be happy to go back to look at that calculation. I don't have that right in front of me. But Eric, I documented that in an email to Eric a while back.
Okay, that's it for me.
Bob, can I make a request?
Yes.
Can you send the documentation that you've done your numbers on to the town administrator so he can take a look at that and forward it to the appropriate people?
Absolutely.
Thank you. Joe?
Thank you. Eric, I'm I'm going to stay on one thing real quick. It's just one question I had. It's really for edification of myself. It's probably to Griffin, and it goes to your answers to Donna's questions as it relates to the 22% oversight over estimation costs, and particularly you have again, I don't know who this goes to, but you have a fee of 5%. And this is, as a layperson, I just need this explained to me, and I apologize, but 5%, this is the profit portion of an overhead and a profit. And up above, you get general conditions, 10%. This is the overhead portion of the overhead and the profit. Is there any way someone can explain to me what that means? I mean,
So those are just separated out. We actually, for this project, in order to get as accurate as a cost estimate as we could, this was actually not even the engineer that did this cost estimate. This was a cost estimating firm that we hired to do this under the engineer. So this is a typical type of estimate that you would see for an engineering cost estimate. But they do separate out general conditions because they hit the overhead first, and then they add their fee on top of that. So it's not just like a flat 15%. It is a little confusing, but it's kind of the hierarchy and the way that these percentages are added in. But this is, I've done a lot of private engineering projects, and this is fairly typical for this early on stage in the project. As you move towards construction, you don't see a lot of these things because they're already built into the construction cost estimate. Joe,
for someone who again, like me, I'm sure Don understands all this stuff, but I never did that job, so it just seems a little confusing to me. And
understood. This is good feedback. I think in the future.
What you're saying, Griffin, is that the 5% profit piece is their fee? Is that the engineer's fee?
No, the 5% is the contractor's profit on the project.
It's what? Can you say it again? I'm sorry.
The contractor's profit on the project.
It is. That's what that is.
Yep.
Okay. I just needed clarification. I'm good. I'm good, Dave.
Sorry if I missed that in the last response.
Okay, Joe, thank you. Griff, as I've talked to a few of the board members, the contingency has me, it gives me real concern. When I did the numbers out on the project, I'm looking at on the second ask, I'm looking at a contingency of 1/5 of the project. Now, I understand what your explanation is, that the money gets scaled down as the project goes forward. I get that part of it. The question I have is that contingency is built into the application, into the amount of money you want. So does that money, if it's not used or as it gets scaled down, come back to CPC?
I would defer to Joe on that.
Mr. Powers.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Absolutely. And that's why I've directed staff and applicants and department heads and everybody to make sure they have the most accurate numbers possible. Because what we don't want to do is keep coming back to ask for more because we undercut and we need to get the project done. But it's with the understanding that anything that CPC offers, that it goes unused, is returned to CPC. And that's the expectation here. Griff, if I've gotten that wrong, please go ahead and correct it.
Thank you, Joe.
Thank you.
Who did I leave off with? I've lost my train of thought.
The first Joe.
We've hit everybody, all the board members? You're all set, Joe. All right, are there any other questions from the board at this time? Donna.
I just had one more question. We had a discussion in the previous go around about whether or not the Mariners were willing to put any more funding towards this, understanding they did not have a season this year. I do get that, but the cost going up this much, it feels like there should be a percentage that they would put in more. I mean, these two projects together with the revised cost, we're talking about almost $1 million in lighting.
I'm going to take this.
Mr. Chair?
John, I'm sorry. As I told the chairman of the Board of Selectmen, this is for the board and the members of the team that we assembled. So I'm going to put that to Joe.
Mr. Chairman, I apologize, but with all due respect, I thought it was understood that Mr. Mahan was part of the working group. Because we've delegated responsibilities. Mr. Mahan was the lead person in contact with the Mariners and the person most able to respond to that question.
Okay, all right. Chairman Mahan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I did speak with Ben Layton, the general manager of the Mariners, this morning. We've been in constant contact trying to figure this out for the best interest of everybody in a public-private partnership. They are not able to make a firm commitment at this time, but they are talking to their alumni. They are looking into grants that could be obtained either through the league, through the, there are different grants that they have opportunities to get. So they are definitely on that. Again, no commitment right now, but they are doing their best. They're looking for the final numbers as well. So yes, that is a possibility.
Thank you, John. Are there any other questions from any of the board members? Hearing none, for all the people part of the presentation tonight, I want to thank you for coming. So we're going to move on. Okay, that covers everything under old business. We don't have any website updates, or do we? John?
Just very briefly, I believe that I put up all the new documents onto the website, and I haven't heard any feedback from anybody, but it would be good for somebody to have a look and make sure they think that what's there is what should be there. Other than that, I don't have anything else to say at this point about that.
Okay,
And,
do I have any
except that, I'm sorry.
Go ahead, John.
Just, if anybody is uncertain about where to go, just send me an email and I'll send you the link.
Okay.
I didn't say that quite right, but you get my point.
Kathy Green. Would you take a look at the website?
I'd be glad to.
Okay. And Kathy, just so you know, every board member at some point, I've requested them to be a participant in some way, shape, or form. And now I'm asking you. Thank you very much, Kathy.
You got it.
Okay, next meeting's agenda points. Anybody want anything on the agenda? Joe?
No, nothing, but Dave, I just want to make sure, because it is a public meeting, did we, at the beginning of this thing, did we approve the minutes from last meeting? We did, Kathy? Okay, I'm sorry.
All set, Jeff? Okay. Anything else under the agenda points from any of the board members? Donna?
Thanks. Earlier I had emailed you and included John because I think it was you, John, maybe it was Bob last year. one of the members had a spreadsheet going of the requests, and I had requested that maybe we do that again, because we have received multiple changes on these applications since we got them, which I guess we had hoped we'd be able to avoid by giving everybody an extra month, but that didn't happen. And so I'm trying to put together all of the electronic plus the paper, and I think it would be really helpful. I don't know if others feel the same. If we had a new spreadsheet with the most recent request totals on them.
May I
You're
respond,
muted.
Mr. Chairman?
I've actually made that request to Jan today when I got your email. So, John, do you want to volunteer to?
Well, I already started. I started as soon as we got the proposals. I set up the sheet. The only thing we're missing now is the complete financial breakdown of where exactly the available funds are, the anticipated. I don't even remember. I'm sorry. The finance
No,
details
that's fine. That's fine.
are a little over my head, but there was a lot of detail in last year's spreadsheet, and I just copied that over and set up a spreadsheet for this year. It's just a question of filling in the information we have now, and then we're going to have a discussion at some point next year, right, in a few months or next month, about exactly how, what some anticipated allocations of funding. But the thing is already in place. And if someone wants to see what it is now, I can send it. If you want me to send it out now, I'd be happy to. There isn't much in it, but.
Well, before you take that action, I don't know what the new updates from Boston are for the second distribution. So let me ask Carol to send you an updated, let me ask the finance director to send you an updated list that she sends me. So you have it, then you could send it out to the committee.
Okay, I may need to have a discussion with you, Dave, or somebody else about some of the details when I get that information, but that's fine.
Okay.
I'll let you know if I have questions.
All right, that's fine. Donna, does that take care of what your needs are?
That's great, and I just have one more thing, if that's okay. I had sent to the chair, MHP, Mass Housing Partnership, offers an annual conference, which is a conference for CPCs and the housing trusts. And I had sent to the chair a list of the offerings. I didn't want to send it to the whole committee, without going through you, David, but I think it's really important. There are great offerings that are happening. The first one was this week. It's how housing trusts and CPCs should work together, roles and responsibilities. And then it's a 6-week series. They're doing it a little different. Typically, it's been an annual conference, but because of the situation we're in, they're doing it as a weekly series. It is really helpful information, and they also record it. So if you can't actually join the information session during that session, you can go back and watch it. So I would just request that go to the rest of the committee members.
How does the membership feel about that?
I agree with Don. I've been to that twice, the annual one, and it's filled with information. You take the pieces that you want, go to the different meeting rooms that you have to, and in this case, there's a lot of information at those annual meetings. I didn't get to the last one, but they're really good.
Okay, are there any objections if an email comes from Donna specifically for this subject? Go ahead, Donna. You've got the floor.
Oh, no, I had sent it to you so that it could be distributed through the proper channels, and I'm just asking that it be distributed to the rest of the members. The email doesn't have to come from me specifically, it could come from Jan.
Okay, that's fine. If I can find it, I will forward it to Jan. If I can't find it, I will call you,
forward it
Donna,
to Jan
to forward
for
it to-
you.
Please forward it to Jan. Thank you.
I'm happy to do that.
All right.
I just want to say one thing.
Jan, you have the floor.
I think what Donna asked for in the beginning, as far as a quick list of all the revisions we've received so far, it's already been done and John already put it up on the website. Okay?
John,
That was that quick list that I gave you yesterday or the day before, and you put it up?
I did put up your revised list. Yes, it's up
Yeah,
there.
so it sounds like we've had a lot of revisions, but it's basically in the applicant and just one financial change. So, but if you all wanted to just get a quick list, it's right on the website.
Well,
Great.
so
okay,
I think what,
was that was your concern, or was, I thought it was something else. I thought you were looking for the numbers. I thought John was going to set up a spreadsheet with all
Right,
the
that is in,
numbers.
right, that is
Yeah.
more detail.
Yeah, I was looking for the same spreadsheet that we used last year with all of the updated numbers on it. And I want to say thank you to Jan. She's had to send us an awful lot of supplemental information. So I want to thank her for doing that.
Okay.
Sure, that's okay.
So John, you're all set.
yes, I was responding to
Right.
Donna's original question as I understood it, which is the full spreadsheet. And as I said, I've set that all up. It just doesn't have a lot of numbers in it right now. It just has the original cost.
Okay, and right, and again, I'll get in touch with the finance director and get the most recent numbers. Okay, is there anything else for the agenda points for next meeting? Okay, and that meeting is on Jan the 17th,
Right, 6 PM.
6 PM. Are there any of the members that won't be attending that meeting? Okay, perfect. All right, can I get a roll call vote to adjourn?
I move to adjourn.
I second that.
There's a motion and a second. Roll call vote. David Nixon, aye. John Ketchum,
John Ketchum, aye.
Robert,
Bob Doan, aye.
Joe,
Joe McFarland, aye.
Kathy,
Catherine Green, aye.
Donna.
Donna Kalanick, aye.
Thank you, everybody. And Larry, please don't hold it against me that I didn't let you speak tonight.
You'll never speak at a selectmen's meeting again.
I'll get even then.